नमस्कार जी।
नमस्कार भैया।
नमस्कार
नमस्कार
जी।
नमस्कार नमस्कार
नमस्कार।
नमस्कार।
एक बार ट्राई कर लूं शेयर करके।
हाँ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
कर लीजिए, शेयर करके देख लो। खोल के देख
अभी
लो, कर लीजिए पीपीटी।
अभी
आर एस
आया नहीं शेयर।
आर एस आज शायद डॉक्टर लियो भी ज्वाइन करेंगे।
कौन?
डॉक्टर लियो बराक।
अरे वाह, गुड, वेरी गुड। बहुत बढ़िया।
इसमें शेयर वाला कॉलम नहीं दिख रहा।
एक मिनट, मैं बता रहा हूँ आपको, जरा मैं रिकॉर्डिंग रोक लूँ अभी।
बड़ी कर लो
अजीत भाई
स्लाइड। हाँ,
बड़ी
थैंक
है।
यू। ओके ओके, गुड।
थैंक यू वेरी मच। गुड इवनिंग टू ऑल and particularly our audience from South Africa, Leo Barak. It is my pleasure to share my experience on climate change and vector-borne diseases. At the outset, I express my thanks to AHC Foundation for giving this opportunity. In the beginning, the VVD consultants, state program officers, and many entomologists of the country. So I thought that I will share some basic definitions which are sometimes used ambiguously. Weather, we talk about weather. Weather is different from climate. When we talk about weather, these are the atmospheric conditions in a short term. We can say today's weather or how was the yesterday's weather. Weather is a short term atmospheric conditions. When we talk about climate change, this is average of weather patterns over a longer period of time. If somebody says climate of day, it is not of 1 year or 2 years. It is for more than decades. Then you talk about climate. When we say climate variability, these are the variations in the climate over a period of, if within 1 year, if there are variations, you can say summer, winter, and dry spell, last year, next year. Whenever we talk about this shorter time period, these are climate variability. Climate change is the variations in climate over a longer period of time, usually more than 30 years or more. So we were aware about the word climate, we were aware about climate variability, but climate change has recently come up. Since 1990, this word is very much in the literature and lot of work is being undertaken at international level. Global warming is different from climate change. Global warming implies just rise in temperature, but climate change, there may be reduction, there may be increase in temperature. So warming is different from climate change. These are the projections by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So what these projections say that by the year 2100, around 4-degree rise in temperature is expected globally. Rainfall is going to be erratic. Erratic means sometimes when we don't expect rainfall, there will be heavy rainfall, and in the rainy season there may be droughts. So these are erratic rainfall. And rise in sea level because of melting of glaciers, water level in sea is expected to rise up to 0.59 meter. And there may be many disasters, extreme events, and that is what we are experiencing nowadays. The updated version says that between 2030 to 2052, around 1.5-degree rise in temperature is expected. This figure is based on several models. So on an average, we can say that 1.5-degree rise in temperature is expected by 2050s. I have added this slide just to share my experience of intricacies of temperature. When we work for research and for implementation so that the climate services can be utilized, there are many words which are in the literature, so we should be well aware about this. Annual temperature. The annual temperature is of less significance in vector-borne disease because vector-borne diseases are transmitted by vectors, and the vectors are cold-blooded creatures. Their body temperature they don't maintain, So that is why their life cycle is affected by climatic conditions. So all the vector-borne diseases have seasonality. Therefore, annual temperature is of less importance. Monthly temperature. So we have to use sometimes monthly temperature. So annual temperature will not be of any help. We have to go to monthly temperature. Daily temperature. In daily temperature also, whether it is daytime or nighttime, is it diurnal temperature or nocturnal temperature? If we use these words in the context of mosquitoes, we can think, where does a mosquito passes its time? There are three habitats for mosquitoes. It passes its lifetime in water, aquatic habitat, it rests indoors, and it goes for outdoors for feeding, foraging. So diurnal temperature, daytime temperature important when sunshine is there. It affects the breeding in open places. Nocturnal temperature, biting, feeding, rest. Outdoor temperature is also affected. The life cycle or behavior of mosquitoes will be affected depending on the wind velocity. Then maximum, minimum, average. These three words are also very useful.
What
So it is
happened?
hello?
What happened?
Nothing? Somebody is speaking.
No, 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 no.
Any problem?
नहीं आपकी आवाज your actually no sound was coming from your side.
Is it coming now?
Now okay, now okay.
Okay. So maximum, minimum and average. So sometimes there is rise in maximum temperature. In Himalayan region, we have seen minimum temperature also rises. So average temperature also we sometimes use. These are three different temperatures. When we consolidate what are the potential impacts of climate change on human health, these are certain things which are very well defined by World Health Organization. There are some problems due to climatic conditions, directly because of the extremes of temperature, high temperature, heat wave mortality, disasters, loss of public health infrastructure, eye diseases, directly because of temperature. Then in infectious diseases, vector-borne diseases and waterborne diseases are most affected. So if you see in the health conditions, vector-borne diseases are very important, and then comes respiratory disease are also because of air pollution. Plenty of respiratory disease means this scourge of respiratory disease is also increasing. Malnutrition is indirect effect. Why malnutrition is affected by climate change? Because climate change will affect the agriculture production, and because of the reduction in agriculture production, it will affect the malnutrition in the areas which are already malnutrited. So this is just summary how climate change is going to affect health. This poster we have prepared just to highlight. If you see malaria, if you want to understand the impact of climate change on any vector-borne disease, we should have a glimpse of its distribution map. If you have a look at the map of malaria, so it shows there are some portions in the eastern side of the country highly endemic. Why it is highly endemic? It is a question of research, and your starting point for research starts here.
Please, Dr. Deeman Justin, please mute your mic. Everybody, please mute your mic.
Okay. Shall I?
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Dr. Okay. So if we have a look at the map of this endemicity map of malaria, we can see the northern belt is having very low endemicity. And if you zoom it, you will find some portion where there are no foci of transmission. So the distribution map itself indicates the importance of climatic conditions, and the climatic conditions affect the geographic conditions, and these are the ecological conditions which are affecting the vectors, and that is why the disease is endemic, or some areas which are free. It means that area is not supporting the growth and sustenance of vector species. You have a look at the dengue map. This is a bit old, but you see the distribution of dengue. Now it is increasing. Almost whole of the country is suitable for dengue. If you see visceral leishmaniasis, transmitted by sandflies, Phlebotomus argentipus is the vector in our country, and you see the distribution is very much restricted. So why Kalajar is restricted only in the eastern part? Why in Bihar, Jharkhand, some parts of UP? Why it is confined here? So the reason is geographic, and the geography is because of climatic conditions. There are some particular requirement for the growth of vector species so that the transmission takes place. You have a look at the filariasis. Filariasis is whole of the country is almost endemic for filariasis. So it reflects that how the vector is, the requirement of Culex vector. You have a look at the chikungunya. Chikungunya is similar to dengue, so transmitted by Aedes mosquito. So it is the survival ability and transmission of virus through Aedes vector. Scrub typhus is increasing. If you see in last 20 years, the map of scrub typhus has increased a lot. So the climatic determinants are not very well known. We are working on these aspects. Japanese encephalitis is confined to rice growing areas. So the requirement of vector is met in certain areas, but based on the present requirement, we can find out what is the future scenario of this vector species. There is one disease, Kyasanur forest disease. This disease is transmitted by the ticks. What is the climatic requirement of the tick? It prefers forested areas. In southern India, Shimoga is the hub of this disease. Why it is confined only to Shimoga? These are some climatic conditions which are available there only. That is not suitable in northern India. So that climatic conditions, temperature, relative humidity, and particular forest has to be there. Then only the survival of ticks will be there. So if we know these basics of the vectors, then only we can think which are the new areas in our country which are going to come up in the fold of disease. So we have taken this clue from the climatic requirements and we have applied it for malaria. Just I have tackled KFD is a new emerging disease. So what are the reasons for emergence? We have to find out climatic, ecological or man-made. Dengue in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. Since 2009, there was no report of dengue in Uttarakhand, but it started in Haldwani. Now it is in Dehradun, Rishikesh, and many other parts of Uttarakhand. In Himachal Pradesh also, outbreaks of dengue are being reported. This Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, there were earlier reports, but now its incidence is being reported a bit more. Leptospirosis also increasing in some parts. Scrub typhus, a mite-borne disease, is also reported. It is found in Rajasthan, it is found in southern India, so its climatic requirement is quite big. So it can survive in many habitats, but scrubby habitats are more important. So if we know the ecology and climatic requirements, we can know where, in which areas the mite or the vector, mosquito, ticks can survive. And if we know the climatic thresholds, then we can find out that yes, with the projected rise in temperature, such and such vectors may flourish in some areas and the disease may also come up, which is not present as on today. This chart poster I have prepared just to highlight, we consider only temperature, humidity, rainfall. But two aspects I will share with you: wind velocity and radiation. The wind velocity, radiation, these two aspects are very important. Radiation affects breeding habitats of mosquitoes in open areas. Wind velocity affects movement of adult mosquitoes. If depending on the wind, there may be breeding in some areas in ponds, lakes. If the wind is of reverse direction, all the larvae pupae may go to on one edge of the village. So having a particular type of wind velocity for 1 week or so, it will affect the breeding and as well as the flight range. They may be drifted by the high wind velocity. So these two aspects, very little information is present. When we talk about this temperature in resting habitats, whether it's indoor or outdoor, the temperature of indoor and outdoors are different. But when we usually talk the temperature, it is outdoor temperature. But mosquitoes require three temperatures: breeding habitats, indoor and outdoor. But most of the time, mosquito passes its time in the indoor habitat. That is why if you go to a village, mosquitoes are not found in all the houses. So that is the temperature variation within a village. A brick-made house has different temperature. A tiled house, mud house, thatched house, these are having different types of temperatures. It shows the difference in the availability of mosquitoes. This is just epidemiological triangle. It holds true for all. Has to be one parasite, host, and the vector species. But the interaction of environment is most important, because it is the environment which affects the breeding, survival, longevity for longer time of the vector. That is why it depends on the climatic conditions whether the vector will be able to sustain longer enough to complete the sporogony or development of that pathogen in their body. Then only the transmission will take place. In some areas there may be mosquitoes, but they will die after 5-6 days. It means climatic conditions are not suitable so that the mosquito survives for 10 to 12 days so that sporogony is complete. So it holds true for all the vector-borne diseases. This is a bit entomological part, how the temperature affects the sporogony. If you see, if the temperature rises, the duration of sporogony reduces. When you say vector survival, there is certain temperature up to 32. Then after that, there will be reduction. Means is it not comfortable temperature for mosquitoes to survive. And it has been reported that at 40-degree temperature, mosquitoes die in 1 day. And we have seen that at 45 also, in 1 hour, mosquito will die. And the same way, at lower temperature also, the biological activity stops at less than 10-degree temperature. They will be live, but they will not be able to move. And the same way, the survival of sporogony. So as per literature, 32 degree is considered as upper limit for development of sporogony in mosquitoes. And the same way, larval development is also. So temperature affects the development bit faster, but after a certain threshold, again there is a reduction because of the excessive temperature. So we have to keep in mind the thresholds of developmental cycle of the vector as well as thresholds for development of pathogen in the body of mosquitoes or vectors. And this is a bit latest work. We were thinking that 18 to 32 degree temperature is the window open for transmission, but this group from Mordecai, they have found that it is not 32, but rather 28 is the best temperature, and beyond 28 or beyond 30, again there is bit uncomfortable development in the mosquitoes. So that is why we are thinking that 32 is the upper limit, but it may be 28 to 30. And if you see the temperature of southern India is suitable for transmission. All the 12 months are having very good temperature. Usually 24, 32, 34 temperature is there most of the time. But malaria is very less. Why it is very less? So it is a matter of further research. It may be because most of the time the upper limit is achieved. So the comfortable temperature of 24 to 26 is found in few months. That is why high transmission rate is not there in southern India. These are thresholds of major vector-borne diseases. Most of the work has been undertaken on malaria and now for dengue and chikungunya, but for other diseases like JE, Kalajar, Kiasnor disease, from the literature we have devised these temperatures. For malaria, 18 to 32 is the suitable temperature range. For vivax, it is slightly lower. For vivax, literature says 14.5 to 16 degree temperature is the upper limit. But for P. falciparum, 18 is the lower limit and 32 is the upper limit, and the humidity 55 to 80%. For dengue, it is a bit lower. So that is why dengue suitability is more in the country. If you see, I will show you the map of dengue distribution. Same is true for chikungunya. For Japanese encephalitis, we have analyzed from the literature and we have found that 20 to 32 degrees is the suitability for temperature so that this disease is occurring. In Kalajar, this is based on very old literature, 7 to 37 degrees the suitability range for distribution of Kalajar. So it is a matter of further research so that we can really pinpoint which are the thresholds for transmission. For KFD, we have devised as 26 to 30, but it may be 24 to 30 degrees the most suitable. Congenial climatic conditions. That is why Kyasanur forest is found in, this disease is found in forested areas. The deforested or desert, droughts, these areas are not suitable for KFD. Another one table, it shows just highlight that if the temperature is 20 degree, if it is 25, how much time it will take in completion of a sporogony. Usually air conditioned temperature, we talk 12 to 14 days it will take for development. If the temperature is 20 degree, it will take bit longer time. If the temperature is 15 degree, 16 degree, there will not has to survive for around 55 days, and usually this is not the length of cycle normally. For Vivax also, for all the parasites. So this is just to highlight that if the temperature rises, what happens? Development will be faster, but if it is lower, it will be slow, and at a certain threshold, it will be stopped. To highlight work, but when we analyze the link between climate and any vector-borne disease, we should take monthly data. And nowadays, even for some disease like dengue, we are using weekly data also, fortnightly, weekly, or monthly, but annual data, because the whole variation, seasonality is lost. If we take annual rainfall of a district and annual cases, and we try to find out the correlation, it will not be desired because that seasonality is lost. So just to highlight this issue. And this is classical example of rainfall and malaria. This is rainfall and see the malaria cases. There is some lag period of 1 to 2 months you find here. Here is built older data, but here you are seeing cases are there, but rainfall is after that. So this type of situation also comes up sometimes in analysis. So it shows the backlog of PYVX. It was not cleared. That is why it continued for next year also because of the problem of relapse. But now we are tackling the situation in a better way. So this classical example of rainfall related with malaria after a gap of around 2 months. This for making it more clear for all the parasites, say malaria, 14 to 18, then this is the best conditions, optimum conditions, extreme conditions, within 1 day mosquito dies. The most suitable conditions are 16 to 80 degree. For Vivax, bit lower temperature is required, and for P. falciparum, this is the lowest limit. So these are the thresholds based on which all the climatic conditions, all the impacts of climate change, whatever we study. So we should have a knowledge of climatic thresholds of any vector, any transmission of pathogen. Then only we can study the impact of climate change. This work we published in 2011. Here we use PRECIS model of climate data. Using temperature and RH, we devise the baseline scenario. In baseline situation, which are the areas which are having windows of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 10 to 12 months. This is the baseline map. This is projected climatic scenario, and it shows these are the details that 160 pixels were suitable, but after that 155 become suitable. So it means 5 windows are opening. So by the year 2030, new foci are emerging in Himalayan region. And in the same way, if we define the categories of 1 to 3 months, 4 to 6 months, like this, there is here also this category increases, this category decreases, but transmission in many areas which are having 4 to 6 months, it increases. So we have published even district-wise information is available. You can see in the current science. So some foci are emerging in Himalayan region and in northeastern region extension of foci. Some areas are having say 7 months, they become 8-9 months transmission. So this extension of transmission we have projected. This is we have used Codex model. These are climatic data. Based on this, for PYBEX as well as for P falciparum, we have, this is also published work. Last year we published this. So it shows roughly at district level you can find out that which areas are going to have changes in the transmission windows. So this can be very useful, and this map you can see very clearly how much change. This is change detection as compared to baseline, which areas are having changed. So you will find the change in Himalayan region, new foci are emerging, or the window of transmission is increasing. So extension is in northeastern states. Even some areas like in Odisha, we have seen reduction also. Why reduction? Because in this part of the country, already more than 40-degree temperature is there. So some months may not be suitable at all. And we are also studying this further because there are two species of vectors here, major, Anopheles culicifacies and Anopheles fluviatilis. So culicifacies, which is open riverine breeding places, open space breeders, as compared to fluviatilis, which prefers in foothill areas. So the vectors of culicifacies may be affected, but fluviatilis will not be affected much. And maybe the role of fluviatilis will increase, culicifacies will decrease, and the transmission may continue. So we may expect, or we may not expect any reduction as we are projecting based on conditions. For dengue also, using those climatic thresholds of 13 to 35 degrees centigrade, you can see almost whole of the country is suitable. Means climatic suitability for transmission of dengue is there almost throughout the country except some portion in the Himalayan region. So for different years, 2030, 50 and 2080s, we have projected using different scenarios, and the highlight is that Himalayan region, particularly Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, parts of UP are going to be affected. Almost same is true for chikungunya because the vector is same, and you can see increase in transmission windows in Uttarakhand and northeastern areas are projected, and in some areas 7 to 9 months become 10 to 12 months suitability. If you analyze this in the context of reported distribution, you find high endemicity. So many number of cases of dengue are there. So southern India, the extensive incubation cycle is completed in a very shorter time as compared to northern part. So here we find very high number of cases in southern India. When we come to rainfall, just I want to make it clear that rainfall, sometimes it may create the breeding habitat, it may flush off the existing breeding habitats. So in some areas with rainfall, outbreaks are reported. In some areas with droughts, outbreaks are reported. So this is also a very intricate subject, and we have to find out the geography of the area. Otherwise, just relating rainfall and malaria may not be appropriate. So we have to see which area we are talking. If there are riverine areas, there may be flushing. And if Rajasthan, Gujarat, where there is a scarcity of water, so rainfall is there at the appropriate time, there will be creation of breeding habitats and resulting into survival of vectors for a longer time. So it provides better humidity so that the vectors survive for completion of sporogony. Excessive rainfall at the threshold, like out of 12 months, if we know that March, April, May, there is no rains, but June is the critical month. That is why we celebrate malaria month. So in June, in some areas, if there is rainfall and adequate rainfall, then we can expect that heavy transmission will take place. Breeding of mosquitoes will be there. They will be able to survive for longer time and transmission will continue. If there is no rainfall at that particular month or the threshold does not cross, we may not expect outbreaks. So in some areas in our country, particularly in southern India, If there is drought, drought may also lead to outbreaks. Basically, when there is drought, the water in rivers is reduced and it will lead to riverbed pools. Riverbed pools are preferred by Anopheles culifacies. There is profuse breeding of culifacies mosquito in riverbed pools, and you will have huge density of vectors resulting into outbreaks. So this relationship between rainfall and malaria or any other disease, it will vary from area to area. In some areas, it may be helpful for curtailing the disease. It may result into outbreaks. So it has to be analyzed at regional basis. Realizing this significance of rainfall, we have seen for in different parts of the country, there is a lag period. The cases do not occur in the same month. Suppose rainfall in the month of July will not lead to cases in the month of July itself. There is some lag period. Why there is lag period? Because with rainfall, creation of breeding habitats, then developmental cycle of mosquito, it will be taking around 10-12 days, then picking up infection, again development of sporogony, transmitting to new person. So it will take roughly 1.5 months. So 1 to 2 month lag period is there, rainfall, and then you will find the increase in cases in the next 1 or 2 months. So if you see in this area, here the lag period is more and here lag period is less. If you see just 1 month and here it is 3 months. This is desert area. So here rainfall of July will lead to cases in the month of October, like that. It will be after some time. We have defined these thresholds. We say rainfall is very important, but how much rainfall, we do not know. So we analyze this, and this is also our published work. So we have found that particular amount of rainfall at the particular threshold means a particular time. If it is there, then only outbreaks can occur. For some 21 areas, we have identified some particular thresholds. Now we have validated and we have found, yes, it helps. Based on the particular amount of rainfall, suppose in Navsari, if it is more than 500 millimeter rainfall is there, then we can expect, yes, the lag period is 2 months. And if this rainfall, we can warn. So we are developing some systems so that based on the particular thresholds, whenever they are met, then we can use it for early warning of outbreaks. The limitations of this projection work. Effective intervention can negate the whole projected scenario. We are in the elimination phase. Strengthened interventions are going on. If we project that such and such area are going to have extremes of, say, extension of transmission in northeast, or so this intervention will reduce the burden. So we should not think that why the cases did not increase. So intervention can change the whole scenario. We should keep that in mind. And if there are drastic ecological conditions, better environmental management, so conditions may be different. So the ecological scenario, sometimes irrigation channels are created, so it may create more suitability. And sometimes better management of water channels is there. It can reduce the scourge of disease. So these are the two basic limitations for this. Based on the projections, this is just I have prepared. 3 scenarios we expect. Either new foci of transmission will emerge. There will be increased intensity in some areas, like 7 to 9 months, 10 to 12 months transmission may be there. There will be some decrease in some months. And there are some areas where there is no change. So how this knowledge is going to affect? How it will affect the program? What is the advantage of this type of outcome? The new foci, we do not know, so we have to be prepared for that. If the intensity increases, it will affect the timing of spray, in which months we should spray. If the transmission was suitable for only 6 months and it is becoming 10 months, whether 2 rounds of spray are sufficient, it will be a question. And we have to see if 12 months transmission is there, whether 2 rounds of IRS will be sufficient or not. So that timing and the number of rounds will So we will be having the constant
கணேஷ் மாமா பேசுனாரு. அதான் அந்த
Please, please, who is talking in Tamil, please mute your
Absolutely.
mic, please. Dr. Dhiman, what happened? Dr. Dhiman, you have to unmute. Dr. Dhiman, you have to unmute.
did that.
Your sharing is not there.
But it is not visible. Again, the same problem. I think it is in your hand.
No,
Yes,
no,
now
no.
I can share. Yes.
You have stopped sharing?
No.
Now it is coming. Yes, it has come.
Yes, it is there. So in addition to the projections, am I audible?
Yes.
Audible?
Yes.
Yeah. In addition to the projections, yeah. So we have generated evidence also. We did a field study. We opened some field sites in Himalayan region, even in Northeast and in Uttarakhand, in Jharkhand. We established some field sites, generated climatic data, disease data, and entomological data. And I'm sharing some work here. So these are the sites we had for generating data. These are the gadgets I wish to show to our VBD consultants. Nowadays, these hobos are there. If we install that in the indoors or outdoors, we can generate daily temperature, hourly temperature like this, as you are seeing here. For recording the temperature of water bodies also, if we put this tidbit, we can continuously record the data of temperature from water bodies. For rainfall also we can measure. These are not very big devices. So nowadays these can be recorded on our own. The data we get from IMD is usually outdoor temperature, outdoor air temperature. But mosquito passes most of its time in indoors. So that is why in some outdoors, you can say climate is not suitable. But the mud houses which are having warm conditions, they are providing the suitable conditions for mosquitoes. So that is why outside it is cold, but inside it is suitable for transmission of disease. This work we compared with our old findings in Haldwani area. You see in three areas, hilly area, then middle Bhavar area and Tarai area. This is the availability of mosquitoes, and you can see the density also. It is available erratically in Himalayan region, in middle portion, some months, Tarai region, around 5 months. And the density of mosquito is also around 30 or 40. We generated this data in 2009 to 13, and we have found that the density has increased, very high density, up to 80, 100 density is there, and the availability of vectors is around 7 to 8 months. So this is how the scenario has changed. Vectors are available in abundance and for a longer time. This is just to highlight the temperature of outdoor, indoor and water body. These are different temperatures. And if there are more fluctuations, the vector survival is difficult. If there is optimum conditions, fluctuations are less. So we have seen this in Ranchi, in Jharkhand, fluctuations are less. So that is why constant presence of that suitable temperature is there. In Uttarakhand, we have seen so many erratic climatic conditions. That is why the intensity of transmission is not very high. This is also published in Journal of Vector-Borne Diseases last year, and we published this. We have reported cases of P. falciparum, PV in Almora and Nainital districts. In some Himalayan region, there are some foci where transmission goes on. In Himalayan region, we have seen the areas or villages which are located at top of hills. They are not suitable. Hello,
I do not know who is talking. Dr. Ganesh.
Ganesh Kumar.
Bolliye sir, please.
Yeah, in hilly areas, there are some, if we go for this digital transfer elevation map, we can find out the areas which are at the lower level, means in valley. The areas in valley are suitable because they are having better temperature and humidity as compared to the villages which are located at the top of hills. So this much variation in the geography will be there. So the areas which are having suitability, they were not having malaria, but now it has been reported. And there were indigenous cases in 5-year-old child also we found malaria. This is just to report that in the month of November also, we got the mosquitoes positive for malaria parasite. So this is seasonality. Outdoor temperature that time was around 18-20, but in the month of November, we have got positivity for the mosquitoes. So it is not that these are migratory cases. Indigenous transmission was possible in those areas through mosquitoes. Then the question comes, what should we do? What are the adaptation measures we should think of? So there are 3 scenarios which I have already projected. In new foci, what should we do? Health education to the community. We have seen in Uttarakhand, if there is no malaria, even chloroquine is not available on medical stores and they do not know what are the symptoms. So we have to educate the community about the breeding habitats, how to prevent themselves from mosquito bites, and if there are such and such fever with chill, etc. They should know the symptoms, signs and symptoms of malaria so that they are well aware about the imminent threat. Then already endemic areas. What should we do for already endemic areas? We have to find out whether the transmission window is expanding. If it is expanding, whether 2 rounds of spray will be sufficient. Maybe because of the shifting, extension in the windows, timing of spray may also change. All the VBD consultants or program officers who are using IRS 2 times, they can see whenever their first round is there, then second round. In most of the areas, October, November, December remain free. So keeping in view the residual efficacy of that particular insecticide, this timing and number of rounds may change. And the limitations I have already discussed. The projections are for projections, plausible guidelines. It is not certain like mathematics that it will happen like this. Then all the things can be changed if there are very well intervention measures. Even we can think of, we are thinking we can go for elimination in some areas with the strengthened intervention measures. Then in long-term adaptations, these are well-known things, but key factors. Health system has to be increased, particularly in new foci. All the vacancies should be there. And the most important aspect here is assessment of adaptive capacity. These 2 words, adaptive capacity and vulnerability. These are very important words in the context of climate change. Adaptive capacity of the community. If the community is very poor, illiterate, housing, they will not be able to cope up with the imminent threat. If you have examples from Punjab and Odisha, the economic conditions of inhabitants in Punjab is very good. Education level is better. Their health seeking behavior is better. They can cope up also. They don't depend on the health workers. They can go to medical practitioners with their own vehicle. They can use their money. Their housing condition is better. Unsuitable places for vectors, in spite of having all the suitable conditions for vectors, all the climatic conditions are very good in Punjab, but Odisha has major brunt because of the lower adaptive capacity. So these aspects are very important when we define the vulnerability. Climatic vulnerability may be there, but if the economic conditions or adaptive capacity of the population is very good, health system is very good, in our country, there are some states in Gujarat, you can say Gujarat. The health system is very strong. Tamil Nadu, very strong. Kerala, very strong health system. So they can cope up very nicely. And based on the climatic factors, if you go for vulnerability, so vulnerability in southern India is less. However, it is more in Odisha and Andhra Pradesh. So these aspects are very important to be considered. I will share with you our secretary DHR. He inaugurated in 2019 or 18. This was inaugurated Center of Excellence. So whatever experience we have learned, our job was to identify the thresholds for some vector-borne disease, in which case it is not known. Modeling of vectors, modeling of disease we have done, but what will be the future scenario of vectors with the projected rise in temperature or climatic conditions, how the vectors will behave. So that we are working on this, and for Aedes mosquito and even for some anophelines also. Then disasters and floods, droughts, plenty of disasters are being reported. Do we know that which disaster is causing which type of VVD? When there was super cyclone in Odisha, we were thinking that lot of vector-borne disease will increase, but nothing increased. We learned that the saline water, when it intermingled on the fresh water, even the existing breeding was lost. So such type of disaster may not result into increase, but in some areas like Patna, last year there was increase in dengue cases. So it caused. In Kerala, floods were there, but there was no disease. So in that context, we have to define which disaster will be responsible for which disease that we can. And based on we have developed so many tools, which I will not share here, but many tools for early warning have been developed. How to utilize that so that a web-based early warning system can be developed, which can be used by the national program. And we have started training manpower. We pick up around 11 persons every year, 5-6 from ICMR and 5 from state governments. Around 22 persons we have trained. Just exposure, 5-day exposure, how to create maps, what are the climatic data, how projections are made, how to do analysis, relationship between climatic variables and a particular disease, so that they can think of starting their own studies, or they can, with the help of some scientific person or institution, all the states, even at district level, this type of analysis can be done. Just very old documents for WHO, we generated these protocols for assessment of impact. One is retrospective, another is prospective. So this is a bit old. And early warning tools we have developed. Early warning, having early warning system for detection of outbreaks is very important. We are in elimination phase for malaria. More and more areas will be having very low API. So in low API, we will be complacent, and such areas will be having more likelihood of outbreaks. So for those detection of outbreaks, we have to find out which factor, cumulative rainfall, this we have published. Then NDVI is one parameter for certain areas. Temperature condition index, we found very good tool for northeastern areas. Sea surface temperature, it can give us lead for 5 to 6 months in advance that the coming months are going to have more rainfall or drought, and we can have some better preparedness. This mathematical case mean ratio, thresholds of rainfall, which we have already shared. So based on the thresholds also, we can detect the outbreaks. Health adaptation plan, we are preparing for the National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program, and we have already submitted a draft. What the state government should do, which action is required, what about training is required, all these aspects, health adaptation plan. So all the states have climate change cell, so they can think of, even at district level, they can think of. For new workers which are interested in India, these are the major institutions. These are not all, but major institutions, you can say. One can have this. Okay, these are the institutions which are working, so you can find out and establish. Then the
Dr.
carry home
Satyendra
message.
Pandey, please.
This is almost the summary.
हाँ हाँ होगा एक
Incident,
साल बाद ही दे देना चाहिए
It's likely to increase, decrease, or new foci, changes in schedule of IRS, health education, and then the early warning system. These are the things which are required. Thank you very much. I have completed in the stipulated time.
Thank you. Thank you, Marriott. Close your share screen. Thanks, Dr. Dhimanji, for excellent presentation on role of abiotic factors on different disease transmission in our country. And really, this is a new subject for our some colleagues, entomologist, biologist, or VBD consultant, including state entomologists also. And previously, we were not aware what is the window period. At least everybody is clear now what is the window transmission period and lag period, and some new terminology under this this presentation. So I request Dr. P.K. Srivastava, my friend, to take comments from our international experts and technical discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. R.S. Sharma. Kalpana has also joined, and we are very fortunate enough today that we are having very experienced person, Chief Dr. Leo Brock from South Africa. Currently, he is in Thailand, and he is heading our vector control group in APMAN, Asia Pacific Malaria Elimination Network. As usual, Dr. Dhiman, it is a wonderful, amazing presentation. I'm also being benefited from your talks. In fact, 3 days before, when I was making one presentation in ICMR for RMRC, I have just stolen one map. I know that you have deliberately have not shown that map, where it was very clearly given 3 plateau of Himalayan range, 4 to 6 months window period, and this thing. It was absolutely very nice presentation. And before we see some of the questions, there was only one very important question. But before that, I'll just summarize that our participants and our seniors also, they must have learned about how the temperature and rainfall are affecting. I remember now Dr. Chaudhary's word, Dr. D.S. Chaudhary, late, who taught us parasitology, and he gave the figure 27. He said that 27 is the magical figure. 27 plus minus temperature, and you reverse it 72-degree relative humidity. It's a magical figure.
Oh, very good, very good.
which is the optimum figure.
Yeah.
And Dr. Ghosh also must be remembering. So you have also told about the same thing, that 28 to 30, and then what is the lower limit of temperature, what is the upper limit of the temperature, why, what is the relation with the rainfall. If the rainfall is 100 millimeter, what we do expect, our entomologists or vector control friends, they expect when the outbreak is likely to come. And if the temperature, the rainfall is 500 millimeter or 200 millimeter, so different ranges of rainfall creating different humidity, opening the window sessions, and then how much time gap, lag period after that we can do. And there are well established guidelines from the program that how to contain the outbreak, how to go about the colonies, camps, what are the emergency measures. It's very well. I would first invite Dr. Leo Brock, if he is listening, please say a few words, Dr. Leo. How did you like this comment? Dr. Leo, please.
I am humbled. Thank you, Dr. Pradeep. Again, thank you for the invitation to participate. May I extend my deepest congratulations to Dr. Dhiman for a very, very interesting expert presentation. I was deeply impressed by the depth of understanding about impacts of climate and temperature and variations, and just the broad bringing in so many aspects of ecology, sociology, humanitarian effects, and so many elements that were brought in that just demonstrates the complexity that will go with climate change. So, you addressed many issues, and it's a very complex subject that I don't think we fully yet grasp and understand, and the impacts will really only start to show themselves in a decade or so, as the temperatures change from 1.5 to maybe higher. And those are really scary scenarios. So hopefully, by the time climate impacts really start showing themselves, we will have said goodbye to malaria. But there's the specter of increasing threats associated with Aedes-borne arboviruses, and other mosquito-borne diseases, but primarily the arboviruses, which probably will benefit from the events associated with climate change, dramatic floods and cyclones and droughts, all of which will have unpredictable, unexpected, severe impacts on breeding sites and distribution of not just the vectors, but also people. People are going to be affected by, fresh water availability as a consequence of climate change, and scarcity of you referred to malnutrition and so on. And then the effects of adverse climate, of extreme climate. So mass migrations and crisis humanitarian situations. So these are things that we need to prepare ourselves, and you've given us some insights into, the temperature ranges, small changes that can have dramatic impacts on pathogen development, and also the vectors themselves. So for me, it was a very interesting, insightful presentation, and I congratulate you, Dr. Dhieman, for a really wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Leo. I am indebted to you that you liked the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leo and Dr. Dhieman. And I am getting a lot of messages on my private Dr. Leo, that they are requesting that please invite Dr. Leo also for a talk. So you have to agree. You cannot say no to us. 100%.
I would not be so. I accept with pleasure, and I will communicate with you, Dr. Pradeep, about a suitable subject that you may find interesting. Thank you for the invitation.
Very nice, very nice. So now, Dr. Dhieman, there are some questions which, along with you, if some of our senior people, they would like to address the issues. The one question people have asked, what is the relation of oxygen with the survival?
Say it is the BOD values you have seen, but we have not studied this. Yeah. It is the BOD value of
नागपाल जी खाना खा लो, जाओ भैया तुम।
नागपाल जी का सब कुछ हमने सुन
खाना
लिया,
खा लो,
क्या खाओगे?
खाना खाओ।
नागपाल जी कैसे हैं?
हाँ, Dr. Dhieman, please.
Yeah, this oxygen level, this we have not studied at all, but yes, depending on the BOD values, the vectors species availability is there. Like Culex prefers very highly polluted water, Anophelines prefer very fresh water, but we have not studied this aspect.
But there is one study, let me summarize. There is one study, Dr. Amit Kateva, he has asked this question. There is one study published in 2012. And they say that oxygen is hypoxia. They have done in 3 stages: normaxia, hypoxia, and hyperoxia. So normaxia and hyperoxia, yes, mosquitoes, they survive, but hypoxia, they don't survive. They are killed like all other living beings.
So
And
he
in
is
case of hyperoxia and normexia, what happens? Hypoxia. Sometimes the mosquito, they try to feed more frequently, which they have tested. There is only one paper which we could see, and that was a science engineering journal. But there are some literature and physiology written that basically oxygen supply is reduced, then the longevity is gone. Finally, they will be dead. There
so
is
he,
another issue has been raised. What is FCSMT? That Dr. Dhiman only can explain.
this is an abbreviation of this is fuzzy logic we have used. Most of the people say that 32-degree temperature, but if it is 31.9, 31.8, this is basically fuzzy logic. That is abbreviation. This is not a new tool.
That's good. I hope
This yeah, this is in our paper. It is published in International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health in 2019.
That's good. That's good. And I'll allow only one more query which has been raised. That this is from Northeast. Basically, they are very curious to know that what is the effect of Aedes feeding on if they use the light, especially these lights today. What we are using, LED lights.
I can't say. I'm sorry. I cannot say this because I have not studied.
No documentary evidence has been generated on this. Dr. Nagpal can throw something on Aedes biting with the light, any light.
Sorry, there is not published paper or anything. Nobody has done this type of study. But generally, this Aedes mosquito, they repel from the light. But I don't know this ultraviolet light. What is that? But there is no such evidence is there by what the impact on the biting.
Finally, it comes to Dr. Kalpana Barua.
Like
Dr. Barua,
Yeah, please.
you throw some light on the question on light.
You throw on light and some light.
Sorry, you have to repeat the question.
The question is that in case, what is the relationship of Aedes biting with the LED lights? I'll read the full question as it is. That the question is, there is change of Aedes mosquito. Is there any change of Aedes mosquito feeding behavior due to use of bright LED light bulb nowadays? As Aedes are found biting even at 10 p.m. and also during full moonlight.
Yeah, there are people, they are saying that many evidences are, but it is not documented. But if you see in the insectary also, if the mosquitoes are kept fasting and even in the night time also Aedes may start biting, or Anopheles may start biting in the daytime. So this behavior is forced behavior, and in this, it is not the regular habit of the mosquito. So if the environment is getting changes, the light is illuminated in a way that it is like daytime and the mosquito is hungry, so it may start feeding. Many of our colleagues also, they from the state, they are saying that they are getting this Aedes mosquito biting during the night time, even late evening and even in the night time also. Someone has to really document it and need to have a thorough study. So then only we can say, yes, this habit has been changed. Otherwise, it is just,
It's an observation.
Word of mouth. We cannot
Yeah,
say anything.
Kalpana, whatever you said is correct. But the thing is that the night mosquito, Aedes mosquito, is not Aegypti nor Albopictus. There are some other species of the Aedes. There are so many species has been recorded during the night time when they bite on the animal and human both. But they are not
I
the.
agree.
They are not the
Dr.
Aegypti
Nagpal,
or the Albopictus actually.
some very good entomologists, very good entomologists, they
Yeah,
have
that's the thing.
identified the mosquito, the Albopictus. I am not going to name here. He might be here also. Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus. Both the species, they have they observed and it fed on them only, and they have taken the picture and one has collected it also. in a small bottle and then taken the picture and sent to me.
There are
yeah,
possibilities
there are
now.
some change. Yeah.
There are possibility of changing. That is what is
Yeah, that may be there.
one aspect of
Yeah.
ecological succession. What we have recorded in Anopheles and biting
Yeah,
gourd
yeah, yeah.
in northeastern states, Assam side.
Something happened, adaptation, some is the force
Yeah.
is there. So many things are there. We have to study that thing.
Anybody,
Then we can say
any of the expert who would like to throw some light on this light question?
I want to say
Might be Leo Brack he might be having some idea. Hi Leo, this is Kalpana.
He is expert of dengue, yes.
Thank you. I'm learning from you, the experts on the subject, so I'm listening with great interest. Thank you.
Yes, any somebody wanted to say something?
Hemant Singh, sir, from
Dr.
here.
Srivastava.
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Srivastava. Yeah, I just wanted to share. Somebody has asked about whether this lag period can be defined.
Okay.
Yes, it can be defined even if they have the data of disease and temperature, rainfall. We can define the lag period. And Reena Kumawat has asked about the modeling at lower level, district level. Yes, our maps are at district level, and if we expand that, even the 50 kilometer into 50 kilometer, we can find out the details also, as you have seen for Himalayan region. Yes, we can provide that type of information. Yeah, and I will be happy to answer all the queries if you send them.
We will send you by email compiling all the questions, Dr. Dhiman.
Yeah, I will be happy.
And
Thank you.
then we will respond on this. We are compiling already 90% questions and answers have been compiled. We would like to share with all the people. That's very good suggestion. And if everything is all right, we will say, I'll just say thank you to Dr. Leo, and Dr. Helena is also there from Indonesia. She is regularly attending Dr. Leo, Dr. Helena. And then there are very senior people, they have joined today. I mean, I'm very thankful to them. And again, tomorrow we would meet again. Yes, Dr. Leo, want to say something? Dr. Helena? So for today, let us say bye-bye. Tomorrow again we will meet.
Okay.
Today
Thank
was
you.
very excellent session, and people are very happy. They are excited that they have been exposed for the first time to this kind of new presentation, new topic. Thank you, Dr. Dhiman and Dr. Leo, especially Dr. Helena. Please, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, and
Thank you.
a
Thank you very
wonderful
much.
opportunity. Congratulations all. Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Welcome. Same to you.
Yeah.
Dr. Dhiman, it was excellent.
Thank you. My pleasure. We have to be with program. Yeah. Thank you so much.
I know we always look forward for the climate people.
DK,
Yes, they can guide us.
DK,
Thank you.
our founder, Dr. Rakesh Sharma, want to say something?
Yes, Dr. अभी तो आया नहीं, अभी तो मैं उनको thank you दे रहा था. Yes, Dr. Sharma, please.
Thank you नहीं bye होगी.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. R. Sharma, please.
Sir, I will just speak a few words. First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Dhiman.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma.
And I would especially mention about Dr. Barak. I think every day someone from somewhere we are joining, and I believe that Dr. Barak, I was seeing your. I hope that we met sometimes in Pretoria, because you have been associated from 1983 in different fields, and as a professor also. So thank you very much for coming today. Dr. R. Sharma ji, thank you very much. Dr. Kalpana Barua ji, Nagpal ji, and at the end I should say compliment Dr. P.K. Srivastava ji.
I'm extremely sorry today, Dr. R. Sharma. I'm extremely sorry.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Actually, your photo was not visible to me, so I just thought.
Sir, actually, I would like to say something here that I'm trying that, that my friends from Namibia and Botswana should join in the next session next weekend.
Okay.
Maybe next coming
That's
Saturday,
good
Sunday.
news. That's good news.
Yeah.
Thank
you very much,
coming
sir.
at the international level.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. maybe by tomorrow we'll be able to show something about the first draft of the report also. We are expecting from today by late night. So we may have to show some glimpse of this thing.
So
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Dr.
Dr. Sharma, Dr. Srivastava. Thank you very much.